Good evening, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to Elyse Host Live. And tonight we have a powerhouse. We've got Crystal Kendrick back with us. Super excited on this platform tonight. We're streaming live here. Tonight is going to be a very informative evening. She's going to bring us some very good information here. I am extremely proud because part one, we did this and recorded very nicely and had a couple of little technical difficulties in terms of how it displayed. So we get a chance to come back and hear directly from Crystal. So we just want to welcome you all. If you are a woman in the community, if you're a business woman, if you are a leader, if you are someone who's impacted by decisions in your community, tonight will be a good chance to tune in, to turn on and tap into Crystal's expertise. This is Women's History Month, and we still have, a number of days remaining. So we've still got some great information that we're looking forward to sharing with you all. So tonight, as we get ready to allow Crystal to introduce herself and share some nuggets of wisdom, if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and post those. We will get right to the questions. If you have any comments, please share this with your friend. Let other people know kind of what's going on. So without any further ado or delay, Crystal, go ahead, take a moment and please introduce yourself to everyone that's tuning in and is watching live.
Well, thank you so much, Elyse, for having me. It was a pleasure the last time, and I'm over the moon to be back with you. You have such excitement and passion for bringing information to women in Cincinnati, and I'm glad to be a part of this. As you said, I am Crystal Kendrick. I am the president of the Voice of Your Customer, which is a marketing consulting firm that specializes in market research, secret shopping, and community outreach campaigns. I am also the publisher of the Voice of Black Cincinnati, which is an online media company that is designed to educate, recognize, and create opportunities for African Americans in the region. We've been in business since 2007, so we're on 14 years. Our offices are located in Walnut Hills on Gilbert Avenue, and we just really appreciate the support that we have received from the Cincinnati community as we continue to grow our business, as we continue to hire people for our business, and we continue to make what we hope to be an everlasting impact on our community. So thank you again, Elyse, for having me. I look forward to meeting your guests.
Absolutely. And the honor is actually all ours. So thanks for being here with us tonight. So I believe after our last broadcast, several other segments throughout the city did get a chance to acknowledge your efforts. So tell us a little bit about, for those who may have missed it, who may not be aware of who you are, a little bit about your background and how you've come into the city here in Cincinnati and have transcended to the roles that you're actively involved today.
Sure. Well, I was born in Cincinnati, so my father's family is from this region, and so I spent some of my formative years, my elementary school years here in Cincinnati, and then I went to middle school, high school, and undergraduate in Philadelphia, where I lived just in West Philadelphia, in a suburb just across the street, if you will, from the city, as that happens to a lot of us. And spent quite a few years learning life in Philadelphia. As Will Smith says, West Philadelphia raised, so that's a good thing. I attended Temple University for my undergraduate, where I studied marketing and made several lifelong friends from the university. I joined pledged Delta Sigma Theta sorority when I was there. So my heart is definitely with Temple and the Owls. I'm proud to be Temple made. Philly bred and Temple made. But when I finished my undergraduate, I decided to come to Cincinnati to go to graduate school. I attended Northern Kentucky University, so go Norse. I served on the board for the Alumni Council for several years, and I was actually the inaugural president of the Black Alumni Council, so that gives me great pride as well. Upon graduation upon graduation from graduate school, I continued my work in the heavy duty automotive industry. I worked there for 9 or 10 years. And then I worked in the banking industry for 2 years, and I worked in wire and cable for several years. And At the time, I had a hobby of doing secret shopping and some writing, and didn't know what that would do for me, but I started the Voice of Your Customer in 2007, which, I said to myself, I had an MBA, I had a little bit of savings, not a lot of savings, but I had a little bit of savings, and I just took a chance on me, right? I took a chance on me. And as my skill set developed, as my entrepreneurial skill set developed, and as I listened, right, I really listened and took advice from people who had come from the same environment I did. I just had a chance to grow. And so, through God's grace and a lot of support from the community, our business continues to thrive. We have been recognized for many awards for our community service, for our work, for our commitment to our staff. And like I said, we continue to grow and we continue to be a beacon for our community so that they can grow as well. Yep. And
I
then in
absolutely love it. Yes. Keep
and
going.
so in 2016 on Valentine's Day, we launched the Voice of Black Cincinnati. So that um, organization is only 5 years old. And that time, we were just having a really hard time getting local media to include stories about African Americans. Our clients had positive stories, our clients had stories for people in need. And so we decided, what do Black women do when they hit a roadblock? They move the roadblock. They take matters into their own hands. And so at the time, we decided to launch a media company that was, again, designed to educate, recognize, and create opportunities for African Americans in the region. So if you have not had a chance to visit the Voice of Black Cincinnati, we hope you do. That URL is www.thevoiceofblackcincinnati.com. And there you will find news and information about African Americans in the region. You will find a jobs board, a very rich jobs board of individuals who are looking for employees of all levels, from executives to entry level, both skilled and semi-skilled, and professional services. So you name it, we have quite a few jobs on the job board of companies that are seriously looking for diverse candidates. We also have an events calendar. It's not so robust right now because most of the events have been canceled, but here in the next couple of weeks, we'll start to include more information on our community calendar. And then we also have a database, one of the richest databases in the region of local Black-owned businesses. So if you are looking to buy Black, support Black, if you own a business and you're not in that database, you probably want to get in there because customers and businesses have really had some success in being listed on our free user database, free user generated database. So again, www.thevoiceofblackcincinnati.com. Thank you.
And if you're watching, you can see right at the bottom of the screen that URL for her website is listed there. Wow, you shared a great deal. I'll tell you this, one of the things we talked about the last time was something that I observed about you, which was a standout. Having been born and raised in Cincinnati, had left and come back. One of the key things that I noticed about you is that you were present, you were tapped in and tuned into our city, and you were definitely recognizing African Americans and Blacks in Cincinnati. Most recently, just a little less than a month ago, with it being Black History Month, you and your organization was one source that I could count on consistently with great historical data of community leaders, African American community leaders who helped shape the history of Cincinnati. Tell us about that project, what you all did, the formation of it. It was actually very compelling.
Well, thank you for that. This is the first year that we did such. And a dear friend, Carl Satterwhite, mentioned to a group of us that it would be nice to have this database of first. Who was the first this? Who was the first that in Cincinnati? And really people who, as you say, helped shape our city for what we know today. And so I do have to thank the Greater Cincinnati Foundation because they sponsored and funded that project. They were all in, and I really appreciate that. We could not have done it without their support. So do know that much of this was made possible by the Greater Cincinnati Foundation. And our job and our responsibility, our project was to identify a new a different person every day of Black History Month who was the first in their field or the first to achieve greatness. And it wasn't easy to narrow the list to 28, but we identified individuals who included politicians, civil rights leaders, and abolitionists. It included artists, and performers, athletes. We have many athletes from our region, and it also included those who have excelled in both education and business. And so it was a tremendous learning experience. I have to tell you, Elise, in addition to just learning about our city, some of these individuals were not family members, but church members, family friends, and you just may have known them as Aunt Lucy or Miss Marjorie. You didn't really realize that they were the first person of African American descent or African descent to have graduated from a university program or to be a school principal or any of these major accomplishments. So it was great to not only learn about our city and our history, but also to learn about, just family, friends, and people that you knew. And so, hopefully we will be able to continue that project in the future. There are some discussions because that project did really, engage a lot of Cincinnatians, and it really helped us learn. But I'll tell you, Elyse, I think the one thing that was most interesting to me, I've often heard academics say that Black history is different when it's written by Black people.
Wow.
And I thought, initially, how could it be different? The facts are the facts. But I will tell you in my research that, some entities, the public entities, the textbook entities would say something like, such and such was an amazing singer. And she was the first person to sing at the first African American or person of color to sing at the White House. And she, achieved this and she achieved that. And, it just sounds almost like a love story, right? Like there was no challenges to it. But when you read the story from Black artists,
Come
they
on.
would talk about the struggles the individual had in getting appointments. And so they became their own agent. And how many years it took for this person to, or for African Americans to be welcome on the stage after their death. And, just all of these different things that really reminded you that this was no cakewalk, right?
Wow.
This was a journey, a challenge, where they slept. I remember reading about Oscar Robinson, and he had to go sleep on the college campus while his
Wow.
classmates would go sleep in the hotel. I mean, it's
Hmm.
things like that that really resonate and make you think. So, of all of these points, we invite you to visit our website and our social media pages to see these stories. But more importantly, remember that Black history can be different when it is written by Black people or for Black people, and to be sure that you continue to research the blogs and the history information, and don't just always look to the post or story that comes to the top of a search.
I love it. I love it. Very good perspective and research. Definitely, if we know anything all too well, given our age, is growing through corporate America, proving ourselves, always having to stand out and work 10 times as harder. One lady several years ago, about 8 years ago, said, wow, when my kids go to school, this is a lady from a different country. Her husband works here. She said, I just dress them, in average clothes, but I see the next African American young man and he's always overly dressed. Why is that? And I use that as a moment to kind of reflect on that history. So your point is very well taken. Sometimes when it's told in one perspective, that true sense of the why is absent. So as African Americans, you're doing a really good job of helping us understand, see that. And thank you for sharing that input. So amazing project that you all have worked on. For those that have not seen it, I've got the website here here at the bottom of the screen. Be sure to get out. Now, you touched on a point about being one of the first to create. And I'll tell you this, we talked about this a little bit. I'm an engineer by degree with an MBA, love technical marketing, never went to school for broadcasting. Now, my father pastored and my mom was a first lady. She's now a minister. And I had no experience in putting productions together, but I knew I could hear it so loud and so clear. We needed a platform to highlight women during Women's History Month and others like yourself that are extremely prominent, very gifted, multi-talented, to come out of the dark and have a spotlight. So in this instance right now, this is one of those scenarios that you just talked about, is something that I created to highlight effective people like yourself.
Mhm.
So, for that young man or young woman that's aspiring to get into business, someone that may be in business that's looking for training, what are some suggestions or ideas based on your experience that, okay, they're tuned in right now? What do you say to them to encourage them to keep going and to keep growing?
Yes, well, going and growing can sometimes often go hand in hand for us. My words of advice always come from my grandparents. The first thing I tell people is, um, one, never be the least educated person in the room,
Mm,
right? You may be the least experienced person, or maybe even the youngest, but to be the least educated person in the room is not always a good thing for us. And so, what I encourage professionals to do is to stay on your game. It is not good enough to have a degree that's 20 years old and you've not participated in any trainings or learnings or any of these other things. Having the education, having the book smarts, at least enables you to understand the vocabulary that individuals are using, and it allows you to, fully participate in the conversation. So I tell people that, and I have been in the room. Any person who has been a second level manager has been in the room when promotional decisions have been made by the level of education that someone has, right? And so that's really important. The second thing I would tell people is to stay involved or connected to your industry group. Now, I'm not here to say that if you might not have the dues to pay, or you might not have the interest to travel to these initiatives, that's fine. But at least follow the social media pages, at least receive the daily emails of information.
yes.
These things help you understand the current state and the future of your industry, and really can give you ideas and sharpen your skills so that when you go to meetings, you have, evidence-based, data-driven recommendations that will likely be considered, if not implemented, rather than emotion or passion. So again, the first thing I'll tell you is keep your education game up and continue for those certifications. The second thing I will tell you is to stay connected to your industry group. The third thing I will tell you is relatability equals credibility.
Mm,
Relatability, it does. So you are promoted from a worker to a supervisor based on your skill. The supervisors are typically the you know, best person, the best worker in doing what they do. And that's fantastic. When you move to a manager or a director, sometimes it's about the best of who they are, but sometimes it's also about the education and the potential.
yes.
But again, it really starts to become about the relatability. So you have to be able to talk, shop, but beyond shop, you have to be able to engage and be comfortable at the dinner parties, at the customer events, at the holiday parties and receptions. And if you are not comfortable there, if you can't have some of the same conversations that they do, either about sports or the neighborhood or the arts or any board membership and participation, you really can struggle. And then all of a sudden, you just aren't might not be the right person, not because your skill isn't there, but because you aren't so relatable. So find ways to be relatable and step outside of your comfort zone. And then the last thing I will tell you is, um, know what you want, right?
I
And
like
be
that.
open to opportunities. Many of us are afraid to take opportunities that would require us to move to unfamiliar places or countries. Many of us are, comfortable where we are because we have all of these other opportunities. But, take these different opportunities, and that may mean outside of work. There are many board opportunities and ways for you to grow and network so that your social capital is as strong as your
Wow.
financial capital, right? Because if you join these boards, it's we all want to join boards that are our sororities or our fraternal organizations, our civic groups, our churches, our neighborhoods. Everything we do for the cause, for the people, and that's fantastic. But I encourage you to think beyond that and see how other boards operate. I noticed when I went from serving in my completely African American boards to majority boards, the game changed, right? And
Yes.
so, we went from in some organizations they said we have $5,000. What can we do with that? Other organizations will say, what do we want to do? Oh, that costs 25,000. How do we get to $25,000? There is a difference in thought. There's a difference in movement. And so I try to take my learnings from my corporate boards and my nonprofit boards back to my community to improve those processes. So get out, learn some things, get out of your comfort zone, know what you want, enhance your education, follow your industry groups, and yeah, and be relatable. You've got to be relatable. So hopefully that helps some people.
I absolutely love that because the board experience, you talked about your social experience, your social equity. When I reflect back early on in my career, I was invited in Texas to sit on the United Way board of Collin County and actually sat on the finance committee where we would evaluate these nonprofits and their operations and being able to be a part and observe and see the protocols, all of that made sense from the church of understanding the Robert's Rules of Order. I think you talked about that before. How important are those types of being aware how business is conducted at the board level? How does that help an individual when they are serving?
Hmm. I'm here to tell you that the serving on the boards and really the learnings that you get. So you talked about being on the grant making committees, right? Where you receive and review the grants, you learn about what other people are doing, but more importantly, you learn how to submit a grant for your organization.
Absolutely.
That's the win. The win is when you
Exactly.
learn how to, receive apply for grants for your own organization. So there are many benefits out there, but you need to work on your financial capital. We all know that. You need to work on your social capital, and in some instances, we need to work on our political capital. But success is beyond your ability to perform, right?
Absolutely.
Promotion
Absolutely.
goes beyond the ability to perform. It goes into potential. It goes into relatability. It goes into, culture, comfort, and all of those things, and the willingness to take tremendous opportunities. You'll see these rising stars in your company or your organization. They're younger. They haven't done all this. And here you are thinking, I've been here for this many years and they didn't ask me. Well, you know what? Probably because they agreed to go to these remote places or different locations. And they worked on special projects and all of that so that they could become familiar with the organization and the employees and the leadership team at most, to put themselves in a position to be promoted. So just put yourself in a position to achieve your career goals. When you do that, it will happen.
And I'll tell you this right here locally, when we did relocate 8 years ago back to Cincinnati, what was recommended for my children, I was seeking it through my sources. Hey, where does a strong academic student who's also an athlete transcend to? So we ended up in the Sycamore Community School District. Lo and behold, there was a board opportunity that I was invited on because they were seeking to diversify the board and ended up actually leading our parents group And Crystal, our average reserves were over $300,000. If they needed a new lacrosse field, one of the parents, a doctor, could write the check. Or if I needed volunteers, everyone signed up.
Mhm.
To have that level of support with ease and to be able to execute not only was a great thing, but it, of course, helped the students, but it helped me succeed to bring in those marketing skill sets to create email campaigns to keep the parents and the athletes and the coaches aware of, hey, here's where our games are, here's what we need. It increased the level of participation, so it was a win-win. So you're right, it's nice to have those experiences in a common environment, but also in a non-common environment, so that we can experience success from all different aspects. So extremely valuable perspective. Let me ask you this. You talked a little bit about your organization growing. Right now, are you all looking to bring on additional help? Do you need volunteers for those that may be watching today? What are some of the needs that you have specifically within your company?
Well, I tell you, we are not hiring today because we are still working remotely. And I've made the decision that we need to come back together before we start bringing more staff on board. So we hope to do that sometime this summer. We've been blessed to have the opportunity to renovate our office space. So that's happening now. So when we go back, we'll have a brand new office space, energy efficient, new everything. So I'm pretty excited about that. So at this point, we are not necessarily hiring individuals for our full-time staff. What we ask the community to do is just support our website. If you haven't visited, subscribe to our newsletter, follow us on social media. Everything that we do is free. So take advantage of it. If you have events, add them to the calendar. If you have a job, if you work in a place that's hiring, ask them to add their jobs to our jobs board. If you or someone you know owns a Black-owned business, is a Black business owner, add their business to our database. What you do is helpful. That those things are helpful to us. If you think that there are resources available for your coworkers or your church or anything on our website, if you link to our website from other websites, that is incredibly helpful to us. So what we need is free, right? What we need doesn't cost a thing. It just takes effort and a willingness to do it. Write reviews. I mean, and this is true for all businesses.
Absolutely.
We've all seen that social media post of 10 things you can do that to help a Black-owned business that are free. Like the page, share the website, subscribe to the newsletter, subscribe to the text messages, whatever floats your boat, but just engage because that enables us to continue to grow.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that, because for viewers, ladies and gentlemen, just like you're viewing live right here, please like what you're hearing from Crystal, share it, refer it, because you never know who may benefit. You may be aware of it, maybe not, but there might be someone who could benefit by hearing it for the first time. So definitely do those things that Crystal did just share with us. So, Crystal, tell us this, what's next for you?
Um, you know, as the world is moving to different phases of the pandemic, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. I mean, the average age of African Americans was reduced, or the median life expectancy of African Americans was reduced by more than 2 years due to the pandemic. The economic impact on our workforce and our small businesses has been devastating. And so we've all heard reports that 40% of Black-owned businesses may have gone under, or some semblance of that. So there's still a lot of work that needs to be done in our community. There are some stimulus programs that have been launched that need to be shared, and people need to be educated. There are still quite a bit of work that needs to be done to educate African Americans about the vaccine process. I am not one to tell people that they should get a vaccine. I am one to advocate that you have all the information you need to make a decision. And it challenges me that there's so much misinformation in our
Mm,
right?
wow.
So I will
Yeah.
work toward the misinformation, but you will not hear us. I don't think that I have the right to tell someone that they should get it. I do have the right to invite you to learn more and then allow you to make a decision. And for those who do want the vaccine, we'll work to try to help you get an appointment or whatever it is that you need.
I
Um,
love that. Good information. So be well researched, know what options exist, and do what works best for you. I totally respect that because they are rolling out. We do know about herd immunity. There's lots of different sources, and what may work for one person may not work for others. So we all have to ensure that we're well researched. So totally appreciate that. And so if they want to know where they can get it, obviously I've done a segment with our first lady from church, and our churches are helping to facilitate those. With the Voice of Black Cincinnati, is there a list of what's up and coming, where they can go? How do you all help individuals that may want to set up a vaccine? What's that process for them directly with you all?
And so that list changes by the hour. We couldn't publish it. It wouldn't be live long enough for the information to remain current. When we know about different things, we do share it on social media. That first ladies have different initiatives. Admittedly, the process is incredibly confusing. We all know that, dial this number, fill out this, have an email, check the mobile app. I mean, it is not easy, but for individuals who are in the city of Cincinnati, I would strongly encourage you to call the Cincinnati Health Department. Tell them that you are calling on behalf of the First Ladies Initiative, and they will be able to tell you about the appointments coming up on various Wednesdays. If that does not work, then we encourage you to call the numbers that are associated with these big giant Saturday in Sunday events, if that works for you. Some of you can get it from your employer, some of you can get it from your church, some of you can get it from your friends and family. If you want it, it can be gotten. It can. It's not easy, and I know it's not, but if not, and then if you're not in the city, if you are in the county, if you're in Hamilton County or Butler County, we encourage you to call those numbers as well.
Very good, very good. So for those that if you want the information, check it out. Please do what Crystal has suggested. There's various sources where you all can tap in. I do want to be respectful of your time. I know that we want to stick around 30 minutes. We're a little bit past that, but one of the traditions that I've started doing as a rollout on some content that I'm pulling together is I have these key words. And given the pandemic, loss of loved ones, loss of jobs, having to shift, looking at new ways of doing things, not going back to the old way, not by the fact that the option doesn't exist anymore. Things are completely different. I'd like for you to share. I'm going to give you a key word, and I want you to share a nugget of wisdom with our viewers here.
I
Is
just
that
wanted to
okay?
just
It'll be
wanted
a couple of keywords.
Oh, couple key. Okay, I just want to time myself, right? I want to tell a story and miss all the other keywords. All right, just be
Okay.
afraid,
Yeah,
not a story. Afraid.
right, right. Just like a key nugget or so associated with it. The first word, we'll start out with this word. What wisdom from your experience can you share when you hear the word journey? What can you share with our viewers?
To remember that it is a journey. I think the biggest mistake is that people want it to be a sprint and they either become frustrated or they quit. It is a journey, so accept that it is a journey, and a journey can mean good and bad. It can mean moving fast and it can mean moving slow. It can mean stepping off and taking a break and coming back, but it is a journey. It is also your journey. Don't compare your journey to anyone else's journey. People always say, "Oh, Crystal, you rose in corporate and you do this and you do that," but I'm not a mother either. And I have much respect for those of you who are trying to do all of this and take care of your household and homeschool your children and all of that. Enjoy your journey. right? It is your journey. Don't compare your journey to anyone else. And the last thing I will say is that people don't complete journeys alone. Now, the people may change along your journey, but cherish your tribe,
Yes.
cherish your
Yes.
team. And I don't say, people say, and this is so true. People say they might be in your circle, but they're not in your corner, right?
Wow.
And so know the difference, but cherish those journeymen with you, right? Because many times those are the people who are pushing you the extra mile in your journey. Yeah, that's what I say about a journey.
I love it. What about this word?
Mhm.
Mindset. Mindset.
Okay, so your mindset is everything. The glass is either half full or half empty. And if you're really in a good mindset, it's almost full, right? It's not even half full. It's on the way. It's getting ready to overflow. And so your mindset is everything. You can do anything you put your mind to. And so if I sometimes it's easier said than done, but just try all the more earnestly to be as optimistic and wise. Wisdom with optimism is priceless. And so I would just encourage you to be in the mindset. And sometimes the mindset is alone. Now the journey is not, but the mindset is. Because God doesn't give everybody the same vision they give you.
Mm, mm. I
So
love
so you go with your God's mindset and your God's journey and you
That's good
make it
stuff
happen.
right there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What about this is very dear to me, and I think it's critical. Give us some wisdom around the word education.
So education is truly what I believe to be the secret to success. And it's not just textbook education, it's not just a degree, it is knowledge, right? And there's a difference between education and knowledge. And so I encourage people to remain knowledgeable. My grandmother always used to say, nobody can take your education away from you, right? And so having that education, having that wisdom, having that knowledge of whatever it is important. And I said something the other day. I said, when we were younger, education was everything. Our parents seemed to think and do that education. I mean, the sacrifices they made for education are just immeasurable. I don't know that our society is as passionate about education as it was in years past
Mhm,
for any myriad of
mhm.
reasons. And I don't think it's anybody's fault. So I don't want to give that impression. But what I will say is that education is just priceless. And I'm prayerful that as a community, we will get back to making education one of the guiding forces and pillars in our community as well.
I love it. I love it. And then here's one final word. This is a new one. I haven't inquired on this previously, but given the pandemic, engagement. How do we engage, whether that's socially or whatever, given the stipulations, wearing a mask, communicating virtually, doing the lives, engagement? How do we engage others?
So, in my small world, I don't have an issue with individuals wearing masks, right? That's not us. That's not my world. Now, that's some other people, and I get that. But I don't want to take up our time with masks. But what I will say is that I don't think we can talk about the pandemic without talking about the social justice movements that happened. And 2020 was just a year. And so for the pandemic, there seemed to be some resources available as we, plan to go back to work and, we're trying to become healthier and all of those things. But what I will say about 2020, and as we do prepare to go back to work, is that inclusion and diversity and equity are top of mind. And if your employers and organizations and all of the businesses you support have not mentioned and diversity, equity, and inclusion to you yet, they will. And what I encourage us to do is one, be knowledgeable about diversity, equity, and inclusion and know the difference. Right, we are moving beyond diversity to equity and inclusion, and I really, implore upon us that we need to understand the definition so that we can have relatable conversations beyond passion. And I would encourage us to not just speak from passion, but my secret sauce is to always write down my words before I want to say them to ensure that I've thought about it and used the correct words to say it. But the last thing is that if we, our advantage right now will be to help our organizations understand how the policies and procedures and practices in our workplace and in our community are putting different populations at a disadvantage. And I would encourage everyone listening to, first of all, understand the words and the difference. It's not just black and white. And the second thing is to be able to have such an understanding that you can help your organization revise their policies and procedures so that we can begin to chip away at the systematic and systemic issues that have held us back. My greatest fear is that if we don't get it right when we go back to work, that it will be the flavor of the month and companies and organizations will move on to the next. We as African Americans are already losing our percentage of the population, and that the Latinx community is now larger than the African American community across the United States. And if we don't get it right, organizations are just going to move on. So this is our chance to get it right, and we need to be relatable, we need to be informed, and we need to be helpful in the process of moving forward. So hopefully that will happen as well.
So diversity, inclusion, and
equity.
And we need to know what those are and what they mean. I love that. Crystal, you are such a powerhouse. It's been a pleasure to have you tonight. I wanted to check and see if anyone has questions. How do they reach out to you? How can they follow up? Do you want them to go to your website? What's the preferred method of following up with you?
Yeah, so anyone can go to our website, www.thevoiceofblackcincinnati.com. You can find me on social media. All of my handles are at VOYC. So you can find me there. You can Google me. Telephone number is 513-281-3228. It's not hard to find me. I'd be honored to talk to anyone who has questions or wants to learn more. Anything we can do to help is greatly, it's our calling.
Well, with having said that, any closing words at all?
No, I just want to encourage you to keep doing this. This is a resource that is needed in our community. It is an educational moment for individuals. And so as hard as it is, and as challenging as it is, and as tiring as it is, and all of those other things, keep on the journey, right? It's a journey. And
yes,
you are leading the journey, so keep going. You have an audience, your audience is growing, and we appreciate you doing this.
I really appreciate that. So on that note, we do have some additional folks that are coming. We've got some technical perspectives, a first lady. We have someone from the sports entity, and then we're going to wrap up with a phenomenal leading anchor woman centered around the news here on March the 30th. So everyone, look for those individuals to come. Crystal, it's been my honor. And for those of you that are tuning in, definitely share this. As Crystal has mentioned, there's a lot of things that you all can do to help Black businesses. And this is Elyse, where I'm helping others take off limitations, move beyond mediocrity so that you too can have a quality life. Thanks for joining us, and tune in to our next broadcast. Thank you, Crystal.
My pleasure.